The whole world is selling. Does it stop today? I'm Darren, and this is 3 Things for Tuesday, August the 6th. The VIX is a measurement of panic, especially when things get really volatile. It reached panic level yesterday before calming somewhat midday. Starting at around $23, it rocketed to $64 before settling down to the mid-30s. While the market was crashing at open yesterday, some retail investors were shut out from making any moves within their portfolios while the funds were unencumbered. Many are very upset about it. The brokers like Fidelity and Schwab experienced crashes and no real explanation by midday besides possibly huge volume. Robinhood and Vanguard also reported outages. The Prime Minister of India has resigned and fled the country. A quota for government jobs has been protested and her safety was being threatened. The country has been fighting instability for some time now due to high unemployment and corruption within climate change. The main airport has suspended operations. Trade while you sleep it across time zones with Arbitrage Trade Assist. Sign up today at arbitragetrade.com. Arbitrage Trade is your trusted source for business, finance, and tech info.
There are a lot of words I would use to describe my daughter. Kind, strong, hilarious. When I think about how much she's experienced in her life, we can't help but be inspired by her every day. So really, we are the lucky ones. Learn more at adoptuskids.org.
Understanding the yips. Caroline writes, the yips is a term used in sports to describe a sudden and inexplicable loss of ability to perform certain skills. This phenomenon is often associated with skills that require fine motor skills, like playing a sport such as golf, baseball, or tennis, or a musical instrument such as a piano or violin. Those experiencing the yips may have trouble with activities they previously performed with ease. Think about what happened to Simone Biles at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Many gymnastics experts said it looked like she got lost in the air or had the twisties. This phenomenon has a lot of names. In addition to the most common phrase, the yips, it is also called whiskey fingers, the monster, the waggles, dartitis, and musician's cramp. What could cause people at the absolute peak of their profession to suddenly and often permanently lose their superpowers? Pro baseball pitcher Rick Ankiel described it as one of the loneliest places you'll ever want to be. Dr. Sally Akehurst, a sports psychologist in London, has done research on the yips. She said, sometimes we hear from athletes that the performance is automatic. They can't even tell you what their performance was like. You know, when you drive in a car and it's so automatic after you've driven for a few years, isn't it? You could be singing along and doing other things while you're driving. But maybe the police come up behind you and suddenly you become very conscious of how you're driving and it gets all a little bit less automatic. And it's then just a bit more jerky, it's not as smooth, it's not as efficient in the way that you're performing and processing. Neurologist Dr. Steve Frucht said that scientists used to assume that the yips were psychological, but in the last few decades, there's been new research showing that for a small number of patients, there's actually a physical cause. They had an actual disorder in how the nervous system works, a disorder called focal dystonia. Dr. Frucht said, dystonia is a very unusual disorder in which involuntary movements are triggered by a very specific task, in this case, just by this athletic performance. That's not just a performance anxiety. Movement disorders are neurological conditions that lead to involuntary movements, such as Parkinson's disease, Tourette's syndrome, or essential tremor. And just like a lot of movement disorders, scientists still don't know exactly what causes focal dystonia, but they do know a couple of basic things about the symptoms. Mayo Clinic states, it's most likely related to overuse of a certain set of muscles. Anxiety worsens the effect. Practice on its own does not make dystonia go away, it might actually make it worse. Medicine or even Botox injections can help stop twitches in some cases, but even when these instruments do work, they just blunt the effects of dystonia. They don't fix the underlying issue in the brain. For baseball's Rick Ankiel, his pitching career was over, but that doesn't mean his baseball career was over. After years in the minor leagues and working with experts, Ankiel made his return to the Cardinals as an outfielder. Going from pitching to playing outfield in the majors might not sound like the hardest thing, but only a tiny handful of players have ever been able to do both at the highest level. While he still could not pitch accurately from the mound, as an outfielder, his arm was strong and accurate. In a similar way to athletes, musicians can also find success after the case of the yips. Dr. Frucht said, it's not uncommon for somebody to develop dystonia just on one instrument. So they can't play the flute, but saxophone and clarinet, just fine. By advancing research in neuroscience, psychology, and sports medicine, the scientific and athletic communities can work together to develop more effective strategies to understand, prevent, and treat the yips. While the yips can be frustrating and career-threatening, with proper attention and treatment, it is possible to manage or even overcome the condition. Stop watching and start living using PIPS, our AI bot. Go to arbitragetrade.com and check out Arbitrage Trade Assist.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
PIPS Pick of the Day. Arbitrage algorithms have detected a possible uptrend for Actinium Pharmaceuticals, Inc. That's ATNM. They are headquartered in New York, and they're a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company which engages in the development of novel targeted therapies. With the market driving so many stocks down into the ground, especially with the crash starting last Thursday, short covering may come into play. ATNM hit trend bottom and has started to crawl back up after being cut by almost 80%. It popped up over 40 cents in the last 2 hours. The compass line has jumped over the momentum, but consider this a high-risk, high-reward type play, which could go either way, especially with the market so volatile right now. Enter at your own risk and only if you can watch it. Set limits and stop gaps. Current price is $2.47, 52-week high of $10.24, 52-week low of $1.33. We are not financial advisors. We provide an algorithmic AI bot service called PIPS. Please do your own research.
Arbitrage Trade Analytics LLC is a privately held research company. Arbitrage Trade Analytics LLC is solely responsible for the preparation and distribution of the contents of this podcast. The opinions offered in this podcast are for informational purposes only and are not intended to function as investment advice. Seek a duly licensed professional for investment advice. For more information about the informational research and services offered by Arbitrage Trade Analytics LLC, please visit arbitragetrade.com.